Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Career Evangelist podcast. Our guest today, he took the battlefield and turned it into a boardroom. He's disciplined, battle tested, and zero fluff. He has coached over 100 leadership teams. He has helped businesses rack up over 100 best places to work wins, and he exited his own company at an 8x multiple during a recession. Inc. magazine calls him a top 10 global leadership expert. Soldiers calls him a sergeant. Your career is about to call him a game changer. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the business sergeant, Chris Hallberg, to the show today. Hello, Chris. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me on your program. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. So, you went from the military service to entrepreneurship. Can you share with us some of the mindset or mental shift that you had to go through in order to make this transition?
Well, I think the military is well known for building cohesive teams. The not too many solo missions in the military. It usually involves at least a handful of troops, if not large numbers, to pull off operations successfully. So, working well as a team and not letting your individuality, break from the team or cause disruption. So I think like military folks who enter the civilian workplace already come with a bunch of skills that take years to develop, whether when it comes to project management, time management, people management, mission management. Military folks hit deadlines. They don't complain. They stick around a little longer. They've certainly been tested in austere environments, bad food, in the rain. Like military is not always, we'll call it a comfortable place. So when you can put them in a comfortable environment and the work is interesting, they'll just be happy, pigs in mud. Whereas, perhaps some other folks that didn't want to serve or couldn't serve might be a bit more entitled, a little bit more lightweight, a little easier paper mache, not granite or stuff. So I think the Constitution, the military kind of toughens you up in a number of different ways. So really what I'm saying is military folks are very resilient. So if you have a couple of finalists and one of them has a military background, the other doesn't, I assure you the one with the military background will be the better candidate and will bring some intangibles that are hard earned over many years. So like when I look at my recruiting company, Business Sergeant, and a lot of the people we place are special operations veterans. So only 7% of the population can call themselves veterans in the United States. So that means that the other 93 didn't serve. But in the military, the special operators are only 3% of the entire military, which translates to about 0.5% of the U.S. population. So like getting someone that has spent years just to qualify for special operations, and then they have to kind of selection is every day. These are people that have been picked out of 1,000 people who were picked out of 1,000 people who competed against another 1,000 people. So we find that when you take a really high quality military operator, regardless of their business experience, and we put them in a company, our elite operators can learn what your company does in a quarter or two. Unless you're splitting atoms, nuclear fission, molecular biology, surgery, obviously those are going to take many years but for most businesses, even though you think you're special, a really smart operator can figure out what you do in a quarter or two. But conversely, your very best leader couldn't carry our guy's rucksack for a weekend. Like they literally couldn't even carry it, let alone do all the other things. So that's really exciting. So I wrote a book back in 2017 called The Business Sergeant's Field Manual, Military Grade Business Execution Without the Yelling and Push-Ups. And in the book, I talk about the translatable skills that you can pull over from the military that will be quite successful. Also, here are the things that you should leave in the military, because you'll definitely go to HR, possibly be arrested if you tie your supervisor to a cannon and shoot it a couple of times for fun, which is what we do to our artillery officers if we like them and they're moving on to another assignment. So there's a little bit about that. But I think, just to answer your question squarely, the mindset, like this, what we're going to do in business is probably not life and death. Sometimes it certainly can be, aviation, healthcare, et cetera. But if we just take accomplishing the mission of being profitable, serving clients, and creating an environment for the employees to thrive a little bit more serious, and we have some people that really kind of fully commit, that mindset plus a business operating system like EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. I've been an expert EOS implementer for over a decade. Military people love systems. And then you need a piece of software, my Go Expand business, to tie that together. So the three things that I'm involved with and how I serve clients are holistic. They're supportive, right? You don't need to do all of them together. You can do each of these separately. It's not required. But what I find is when you have the right mindset, you have a system, and then you have world-class people, you're going to be good. So the thing that I figured out here is, when you have a bunch of people that are there for the right reason, they're willing to be a bit more accountable than the average business. That's that commitment and mindset coming in. They're going to follow a business operating system, because if you're not following a system, you're making it up, and that's not going to end well as you scale. And then when we have an amazing human that has the halo effect, a circle of awesome that just radiates around them. So, people don't do what you tell them to do. They do what you show them to do, right? So stop talking and start doing. So when we create the systems and we hire great people, that just kind of catches on. And after a while of strategically adding the right people in the right seats, the wrong people in the wrong seats are repelled, and they leave the organization, and they make space for future right people, right seats. So really what I teach is curating your team of however it is, 3 people, 300 people. Just a handful of people that don't want to be there can ruin the experience for the people that do. So I really empower my clients to clear out the wrong people, to make way for the right people. And that's how I help make companies great with that mindset.
Okay, thank you, Chris. By the way, I should have started with thank you for your service. And you've answered so many core points during your when you were talking there. But I want to maybe double click on the EOS implementation. As one of the original Entrepreneurial Operating System implementer, how does this system, how can it help people, not just executive, maybe individual contributor? How can it help them professionally in their career?
Yeah, so what's important is it's EOS is taught by EOS implementers, or you can self-implement if you have a smaller company, and the cost of a professional coach is prohibitive. 90% of the people that run on EOS do it themselves. Only 10% of people that run on EOS use a professional implementer like myself. So this is for everyone, but we have to have buy-in from the top. The leadership team wants to have a clear, cohesive team. And as a middle manager, a sergeant in the workforce, right, a business sergeant, someone who has leadership but isn't on the leadership team, it's a good way to understand we have a leadership team, the officers, the C-suite, the bosses, the department heads, and then their number twos, the sergeants, and then the greater team. So there is a leadership team, a management team, and a greater team. So first understanding there's 3 different teams, and they all have a different function, and they all need to communicate together. They need to manage up, they need to manage laterally, and they need to be able to manage down. So the operating system, real high level, there are 6 key components of the entrepreneurial operating system. First is the vision component, getting the leadership team, the management team, and the greater team 100% on the same page. And that is just a 2-page business plan, because that's about all the attention span folks have these days. So you gotta make it short and sweet and impactful. And then they all opt in to the plan, or they opt out and go do something else. What happens is a good number of the companies kind of doing their own thing. And even if we're just a half a degree off and you have 100 people, you're 50 degrees off. We're now not even, we're now pointing at 3:30, not noon. So answer 8 simple questions: core values, core focus, 10-year target, marketing strategy, 3-year picture, 1-year plan, quarterly rocks or projects, and then long-term issues. That's what we're working on. And every year we recast the 3-year and the 1-year. And then the second key component is the people component. We talk about the right person in the right seat. The right people share your core values. They're great to be around. They value what you value in a work setting. And then in the right seats means they get, want, and have the capacity, GWC. Third key component, the data component. That's getting past all the egos and the personalities and the subjectives and boiling the organization down to a handful of numbers, some weekly activities, and then some monthly results. If we're missing the monthly results, we just turn up the weekly activities until we get into parity. Fourth key component, and especially when you have a company that's strong in vision, strong in people, and strong in data, issues is the fourth key component. It's just an issue. Issues aren't always a negative thing. They also are opportunities. They're things we need to discuss. And we have short-term issues. I'm down to solve that in the current quarter. Or, yeah, that's an issue, but we don't have the ability to solve it. So let's just weigh and measure it, put it over here, compartmentalize it on the long-term issues list, which is 90 days or greater. And then every quarter, we'll see if we can add those to the short-term list if the time is due. Fifth key component is the process component. Think about the 20% that gives you the 80%. That's the checklist, outlines, go fast workflows that allow to create a consistent, scalable experience that clients and employees love, and that we can scale much more simply than making it up every day. And then finally, the sixth and final key component is the traction component. And that's bringing the vision down to the ground, making it a reality by creating a 90-day world. Humans definitely get off track after about 90 days. You got to pick everybody up, pat them on the back, kick them in the butt, whatever they got coming, reset, recommit for another 90 days. So think about re-enlisting. I want to be here for another 90 days, right? And then creating a meeting pulse where we can eliminate a bunch of performative meetings where we just share information. Sharing information is for emails. Meetings are for solving issues. So, really eliminating a bunch of erroneous meetings and getting down to highly structured, reoccurring agendas every week. The agenda doesn't change, but what we talk about inside of it does. So those are the 6 key components of VOS. And my job as an implementer is to get a team over 80% strong and all 6 of those key components. And you do that by going to organizationalcheckup.com. That's EOS's org checkup, and you get a score. And if you're telling the truth in your average company, you're probably around 30. And our job over about a 2-year period, we do about 5 sessions a year for 2 years, offsite full days with the leadership team. So EOS is a train the trainer program. We train the leadership team, and the leadership team trains EOS throughout the organization. Larger organizations, I'll spend some time with their sergeants as well. But in smaller organizations, all that work is done by the leadership team. And basically, the success rate is over 85% of the people who start the program graduate the program, and they have a business that is highly respected, high engagement, high profit, low turnover. As an example, my clients, those 130-ish EOS graduates, have won over 200 Best Places to Work awards, some of them 8 or 9 years in a row themselves. And in order to win one of those awards, that's not write a check for a piece of crystal. That's get an entire company engagement survey, and you better be 93, 94% to win. So that is a lot of world-class results. And a lot of that is attributed to the amazing process, which is the EOS Entrepreneurial Operating System. So that's what it is. And everyone can benefit from it. No one's ever oh, I don't want to be clear. Oh, I don't want my people to be accountable. Yeah, we don't want to be profitable. So it's kind of hard to sell against it. But it's also very simple, but it's also not easy because it involves human beings. And oftentimes we don't have the right people in the right seats when we start EOS. But when we're finished with EOS, the entire company are the right people in the right seats. So it's really the curation process of getting on the same page, putting the right people in the right seats and then letting people thrive in that environment. So EOS companies are fun to work at because they're profitable, they're not dysfunctional, the culture is great, the engagement is wonderful. The big thing I tell folks is like, hey, the whole reason we're doing this is just simply to create an environment for the right people to thrive. And anyone who doesn't like that, wrong person, go be unhappy somewhere else. You don't have to hang on to a bunch of people that hate it. And that's probably the number one problem I see in business is hanging on to the wrong people too long.
Thank you, Chris. So you talked about EOS companies. Can you give us some examples of maybe companies that you've worked with? And if you don't mind, you can share maybe a success story to my listeners.
Oh, yeah. So EOS is industry agnostic. It works anywhere there's a group of like 10 people or more. It was designed, I think the target market for EOS is 10 to 250 employees, 2 to 50 million in revenue. But we have folks under that and over that are quite successful for the program. But that was the original intent of the author of Traction, my good friend Gino Wickman, who is the creator of the Entrepreneurial Operating System. So there's a book called Traction, Get a Grip on Your Business. I highly recommend everyone get their hands on that. And that does a much better job than I am explaining like what it is, who it's for. But I have clients like, again, well over 100, construction, software, service-based businesses, manufacturers, you name it. There's only a few groups where, perhaps nonprofits or lawyers, but I've got lawyer clients and I've had nonprofit clients and they've done a great job with the EOS. But it's just about companies that want to be entrepreneurial, want to be clear, want to be focused, want to put really give the power to the employees. Like Steve Jobs' quote from years ago said, "We don't hire smart people and tell them what to do. We hire brilliant people and they tell us what to do." So EOS run companies are more about like really getting the subject matter expert and following their lead. If they're the right person in the right seat, they'll tell you what comes next. A poor leader will see a strong resume and see it as a threat to their position, so they'll bury it. A great leader curates a team of people beneath them that are better than they are. So, like, if someone goes to like the Business Sergeant or even the Go Expand website, I've got a bunch of logos of clients that I've worked with, but huge restaurant groups, automotive groups, you name it, I've been there and done that. So there are a ton of brands. Some people would recognize and some that are smaller regional players that are mighty and fight above their boxing weight, so to speak.
So, Chris, you talked a lot about teams. I want to hear from you. What are some non-negotiables for building an elite team, whether it's in the military or maybe even in a corporate organization?
Yeah. So I'll quote another consultant here, Patrick Lencioni, The 5 Dysfunctions of Teams, kind of the godfather of business team health. He's wrote a ton of different books. He runs the Table Group, and Patrick talks about the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And it's trust at the bottom. You got to be vulnerable, got to be able to, get your ego out of the way and trust that we're all here for the right reasons and trust that I can call you out and you're not going to transfer me to the Anchorage field office for my trouble. Then we go into healthy conflict, fear of conflict, right? F you, no F you more, like unhealthy conflict, no place for that. But hey, I respect you, but I disagree with part of your plan. Let me explain. I have some data to support that. Would you be open to that? Oh, sure, no problem. Or how dare you challenge me, right? So like, I'm going to make this miserable for you. So being able to engage in healthy conflict. And when you can do that, then you go to the next one, which is commitment. And if your company cannot have healthy conflict, everyone is just pretending to get along. And it's fake. And that's why we miss deadlines and we don't make numbers and we spend a lot of money and we go through the motions, but we seem to fail. We fumble the ball before we get into the end zone. It's because people aren't committed. And if someone offered them another $1 an hour, they would leave versus a world-class company. Someone could offer is up to like 20, 25% of comp and they'd still want to stay, because it's rare to have a team where you're respected and heard and you can contribute and you're growing and your skills are becoming more valuable because you have a mentor and they want you to take their job because they're rising as well. So I think when people are committed, then the next one is accountability. So people hire me and say, my people aren't accountable. So I'll say, well, how's the trust? And they'll be like, well, I think it's okay. And then I'll meet the team and it's like, yeah, you can't speak the truth here. So, okay, how's conflict? Oh, everyone avoids it like the plague. We're all from the Midwest where we're passive aggressive. Like, oh, that's wonderful. Idiot, as soon as they turn around. So then when we're accountable, the accountability only happens when people are committed. If people aren't fully committed, you can't hold someone accountable if they don't really care. So the accountability and is the second to last, and the last one is the results, the top of the pyramid. So to answer your question, using Pat's, 5 dysfunctions of a team, if the team doesn't trust each other, we can't engage in healthy conflict. People aren't committed. People can't be held accountable. We're going to have poor results. So I just start at the bottom and say, on a scale of 1 to 10, like, how real are these conversations? How authentic? How raw? How much ego? Family-owned business. Like, here are the rules if you have this last name, and here are all the rules if you don't. You know what I mean? We really got to be one team, one voice, one vision. And in order to do that, everyone has to agree that we're going to do those 5 things at the highest of our ability, because the very best teams are great at those things. The worst teams are like a 1 out of 10 in all of those things. The best teams are like a 10 out of 10. So you could be a 10 in results and a 1 in trust. There was a company called Enron from Houston, where you're from. And there's a special place in hell for those guys when they get to the pearly gates, because if you remember, they were shutting down power grids to manipulate energy futures, which also included emergency rooms, neo units, and people died. So the CEO could throw his wife a $4 million birthday party. Like I actually saw their CEO or their CFO speak a couple of years ago at an entrepreneurs organization event, and he's sorry, by the way, but yeah, I think their CEO is still in the slammer for a little bit, but. What we want to be is a 10 in all of those, and creating an environment where people would never leave. They're going to retire here because it's such a wonderful place.
So you talked about people not leaving, and I also know that the military services teaches a lot about long game thinking. So how do you apply, or what do you want to tell our listeners today in terms of how to apply long-term thinking to their career planning in an era today where people are just switching jobs every 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, so that's that commitment again. In the military, you sign up for 3 to 10 years, depending on what you're doing. That's the commitment thing. No one's going to question, do you want to be here? Because you have to complete basic training, which isn't fun, and you have to go to your unit. And, I was an MP. So if you don't show up for work in the military, they send me and my guys to come get you. In the civilian business world, your best person can just walk into your office and say, hey, I'm not feeling this. I got an offer somewhere else. Or my wife got her dream job, so I'm going with her. So that's a big difference. People can leave whenever versus people are basically committed and can be imprisoned if they break that. So that is a big, big difference in commitment. However, in the military, they assign you soldiers, and your job is to take perhaps less than perfect individuals and get them into a serviceable and a range, and then they can thrive after that. In the civilian business world, you have access to 7 billion human beings. So you can pick, but they have free will to leave. So that is the biggest dynamic change between the two. Is one has high commitment but limited talent, and the other has unlimited talent but without that, signing the contract and the threat of imprisonment to come into work. So they're very different operating environments. So when you find someone who's not only survived but thrived in the military environment, they bring with them a bunch of past history that is really applicable. when the tough gets tough, right? We get going. And because of they've been in so a lot of situations, some life and death, some just no fail support missions for those in harm's way. Um, 9 to 5, Saturday and Sunday off. Ooh, that sounds good. Yeah, to someone who's used to being on call 24 hours a day for years at a time, often in foreign, austere lands.
So, as we are wrapping it, Chris, I want you to leave my audience, the career professional or maybe entrepreneurs that will be listening to you, one repeatable daily practice that you think they need to adopt so that they can level up their career or business.
Yeah, I would say it's probably a weekly task list, a clarity break where on Sunday or Monday you get clear with what needs to happen this week, and then have your daily check-in against that. So just daily practice is good, but the daily practice should be centered in the weekly commitments, which would be tied to quarterly goals, which are tied to yearly goals, which are tied to 3-year pictures, which are tied to 10-year targets. So that's a EOS thing right there, right? We have if you have daily stand-ups or daily metrics, weekly scorecards, then we have quarterly meetings, quarterly rocks, then we have annual goals, and then we have 3-year picture goals and a 10-year target. So basically, that's military backwards planning, EOS itself. So where you want to be in 10 years, then you need to be in 3 years. And if you want to be in 3 years, you know where you got to be in the first year, and so on and so forth. So using that military backwards compartmentalized training allows you to know what I'm doing today is the right thing because it's in support of the week, which is in support of the month and the quarter and all the way up.
So good. Thank you for sharing that. So finally, Chris, where can my listeners, where can they find you?
Well, I would say just give me a connection on LinkedIn. Would love to connect with all your folks. Just Chris Hallberg. I'm easy to find there. They can find my software company at goexpandit.com. My Business Sergeant website, you can just type in Business Sergeant, or the actual URL is bizsgt.com. And then anyone can just search EOS Worldwide / Chris Hallberg, and they can find my implementation site. So those are the 3 places where folks can find me.
Thank you very much for coming on the show and for enriching listeners here with your wisdom. We appreciate your time, Chris.
Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Right.